The Miami Dolphins go to Lambeau Field in what was essentially their biggest game of the season so far leading up tonight. And what do?
Lay an egg.
They lay an egg as usual. The Miami Dolphins lose to the Green Bay Packers 30-17, and as the scoreboard says, it wasn't as close as the scoreboard says. 30-17, it looks close. Ladies and gentlemen, this was not a close game at all. The stats are going to say it was a close game from the second half. It was all garbage time stats for the Dolphins offense. Usually we are going into these losses and they're like, oh, this loss is on the offense. This loss is on the defense because they couldn't stop the Cardinals or they couldn't stop the Bills. Tonight, I felt like this was really the first team loss. This and week 2 against the Bills. This was the first team collective loss of the season. And it's a damn shame too, because both those games we were wearing our beautiful throwback uniforms, and both those times we played horrendous in week 2 and on Thanksgiving night against the Green Bay Packers. We are just, the way this team is built, and this is on Chris Greer, the general manager, and Mike McDaniel, they are not built to go on the road in cold games like this and compete compete with good teams. They're not built for it whatsoever. You know when you have like a gazillion missed tackles. There's a stat that I saw online and during the game and online that I'm going to pull up in a little bit. But a prime example of the other team being way more physical than you are is fourth quarter, you're down 27-11. You have the ball at the 7-yard line. Devon Achane gets a 6-yard run. Okay, cool. We get the ball at the 1-yard line. We should be able to punch it in. Second and goal, Devon Achane does not get a single yard on that carry. What does Mike McDaniel do on the next 2 plays? He calls passing plays. Why? Because he knows that he's not confident in this offensive line to push the defensive line for 1 yard to get in for a touchdown. 1 yard. They couldn't do it. So that tells you right there that the Dolphins are not physically built to go on a road and beat a team like the Green Bay Packers, because the Packers were just a way more physical football team. The Dolphins got destroyed in the trenches tonight on offense and on defense. Not a single sack on Jordan Love. Jordan Love had a clean jersey all game. That should never happen to an opposing opponent. And the Dolphins couldn't run the ball, and the Dolphins were undisciplined. And really, what changed the game was the first drive. That Malik Washington muffed punt just sparked the momentum that Green Bay took and ran with the entire night. You have a great 3-and-out after a good punt return from the Packers, and Malik Washington basically kissed it all away in one fumble. And the Packers had all the momentum, and the Packers never looked away from that muffed fumble. So we are going to get into this game, but I want to talk more about the missed tackling from the Dolphins. If I could find this on Twitter, on X, I will tell you the stats for the Dolphins' missed tackles, but it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. They had 20 missed tackles tonight. That is unexcusable. That is unacceptable. You cannot win football games on the road when your defense has 20 mixed tackles. And the same thing happened in Kansas City. They did not want to play in that game in Kansas City last year. And they did not want to play in this game in Green Bay. They wanted to get the hell out of there. What their body language showed me their entire night. And this was, I took a picture of this for this show. This was like in the middle of the third quarter, maybe. Entering their next defensive drive. This was right after the first touchdown. The Dolphins had 13 missed tackles and allowed 75 yards on missed tackles alone. That's ridiculous. So, that is absolutely mind-boggling. This is a team loss. This is on the defense. This is on Tua Tagovailoa in the first half. 3 points in the first half. Unacceptable. This is on Mike McDaniel's play calling. The offensive line was garbage. I think Teron Armstead might have played his worst game ever as a Miami Dolphin. You can make that argument. I think it was. And it's Chris Grier's fault because of the way this team is built. And now, before we get into the actual game, what's going to happen is the Dolphins are 5-7. Mathematically, they're not eliminated from the playoffs, but it's going to be insanely impossible for them to get to the playoffs now. So this is what's going to happen. The Dolphins, for no reason, are probably going to win 8 or 9 games. They'll finish the season 8-9 or 9-8. They won't make the playoffs, and they'll have a middle-of-the-road draft pick. They'll have the 15th pick in the draft. Typical Miami Dolphins. They can't even tank right. They can't even tank correctly. So now they accomplish nothing. Nothing gets accomplished. Nothing has been accomplished in my entire lifetime as a Dolphins fan. And going into the season, the team had Super Bowl aspirations. And I know we are nowhere near the Super Bowl right now, but again, and I will bring this up every single fucking week. If Tua Tagovailoa slides in the Week 2 game against the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins right now are probably sitting here at a record like 7-5. They're sitting at 7-5, and they're in the playoff mix. But that's not the world we live in. We live in a world where the Miami Dolphins are 5-7, and they're not going to make the playoffs this year. It would take a Miami miracle for them to get to the playoffs. And even at this point, do you really want to see this team make the playoffs? Do you really want to see them fight for the next 5 weeks? Say they go 10-7. Let's say the Broncos collapse down the stretch. The Dolphins somehow make the playoffs, and they have to go to Buffalo or to Kansas City in the first round. Guess what? The same thing is going to happen in that game that happened tonight. So is it worth it, really? You really got to think about it to yourself. Oh, man. Abysmal, man. Absolutely abysmal. But I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving with your families. Eating turkey and mashed potatoes and all the great things. Pie, cake, whatever. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving with their families. And enjoy the holiday, because now it's officially the holiday season. And as I'm recording, it's about to be 12 o'clock. It's about to be November 29th. So today is my mother's birthday. Happy birthday to my mother, if you're watching this. And yeah, man, just a gut-wrenching loss for this Dolphins team tonight. But it's typical Miami Dolphins. Let's get into some stats, and then we'll get into the game, I guess. Tua Tagovailoa will start with the Dolphins. 37 of 46, 365 yards, 2 touchdowns. Thank God I started Tua last minute in my fantasy league because of the stat padding. He ended up giving me 29 points in fantasy football tonight. So that is the best takeaway from this game for me is I got 29 points from Tua and I got 21 from Devon Achane. So that's the best thing that happened for me tonight in this game. But don't let those stats fool you. Tua did not play a great game tonight. I shouldn't even bother giving you rushing stats because the Dolphins had 39 rushing yards total, and they averaged 2.8 yards a carry. That's pathetic. It just goes to show you how unphysical the Dolphins' offensive line is. We get to receiving. Jonnu Smith, 10 catches, 113 yards, absolute monster. Tyreek Hill, 6 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Devon Achane, 8 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. Jalen Waddle had 4 catches for 53 yards. No point for giving you defensive stats because no sacks and no turnovers for this Dolphins defense tonight. We go to Green Bay. Jordan Love, 21 for 28, 274 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. I'll say it again. The stats that Tua had was stat padding in the second half when the game was 27-3 and the game was over. This game was decided in the first half, and the better quarterback on the field tonight was Jordan Love. And that's not a lie. That's a fact. Josh Jacobs, 19 carries, 43 yards, and a touchdown. They had 114 total carries. Chris Brooks, former Dolphin, broke off a couple big runs tonight. 28 rushing yards total for him. Tucker Kraft was Green Bay's leading receiver. 6 catches for 78 yards. Josh Jacobs, 4 catches for 74 yards. Christian Watson, 2 catches for 67 yards. And Jaden Reed had 3 catches, 24 yards, and a touchdown. And then we look at their defense. They had a forced fumble. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sacks on Tua Tagovailoa. 5. There you go. Okay. We'll start talking about this game. We'll do play-by-play. Green Bay, they get a 43-yard kick return by Keyshawn Nixon. So they started their own 46-yard line. They go 3 and out. On 3rd and 14, Jordan Love fumbled, and it was recovered by Calais Campbell. But under further review, the pass ended up being incomplete, and it was 4th down. And that was very unfortunate because on the very next play, Green Bay punts. Malik Washington muffs the punt. Green Bay gets the ball at the Miami 9-yard line. And on 3rd and goal, Jordan Love to Jaden Reed for a touchdown. You cannot start a game as bad as the Dolphins did. They allow a big return on special teams. A muffed punt on special teams by Malik Washington. And you basically just gave Green Bay points right off the bat. So, already, that's a killer. 3 minutes into the game. Then Miami gets on the field for their offense. And the first play is a false start by Jonnu Smith, which goes to 1st and 15. Tua to Achane for 11 yards. 2nd down, Tua to Achane for 7 yards. First and 5, you get a false start from Julian Hill. It's back to first and 10. Second and 11, you get an unnecessary roughness from Jonnu Smith. Now, the referees were not the reason why the Dolphins lost this game. Absolutely not. But I would be mistaken if I say they did not have a good day. And really, referees in general, and especially in that Chicago-Detroit game, I thought they were terrible. I thought they hosed Chicago on that last drive, even though that was a terrible game management by Matt Eberflus. Chicago got hosed by penalties by the referees. But that has nothing to do with this game. Jonnu Smith gets called for unnecessary roughness. Do I agree with it? No, because the defender hit him first. But they always going to get the guy who hits second. So, always. So it backs it up to 3rd and 29. Raheem Mostert for 3 yards. And Green Bay, they get the ball now. They go 12 plays, 76 yards. And they take up 7 minutes of clock. Kader Kohu, there's a ton of injuries coming out of this game too, by the way. You had Benito Jones and Kendall Lamb get injured in the game, but they both were able to come back. But you got Kader Kohu, Cam Smith, and Jordan Brooks, who were injured on the Dolphins defense in this game. But Cam Smith came in to replace Kader Kohu, and Cam Smith was an absolute miss of a draft pick by Chris Grier, and Vic Fangio was not wrong about Cam Smith. He is a huge, huge bust. He finally starts some games this year. He gets in there. Other teams are picking on him. It's working. He gets called for tons of penalties. He's always hurt. And he's just not good. And it was a total bust of a draft pick by Chris Grier. 3rd down. Jordan Love to Tucker Kraft for 17 yards. They're marching up the field. Jacobs for 11. Emmanuel Wilson for 5. Emmanuel Wilson for 15 yards after a missed tackle by Jordan Poyer. Jacobs for 6. And then Jacobs for a 1-yard touchdown. It's 14-0 Green Bay as we go into the second quarter. The Dolphins have the ball. Tua goes to Jonnu Smith for 11 yards. 2nd down, Tua to Alec Ingold for 13 yards. Devon Achane gets a 13-yard run. 3rd and 6. Tua to Tyreek for 2 yards. And then on this sequence, Miami gets called for a delay of game penalty. How you go for it on 4th down and you get a delay of game? That's absolutely ridiculous. And that is all on Coach Mike McDaniel. So they kick the field goal. They make it. Neutral zone infraction. They go for it again. And they connect to Waddle. 16 yards, 1st down. And then McDaniel gets cute. And shit like this is how I blame Mike McDaniel. That he has a hand in this loss. 1st and goal. First play. He gets cute with an end around to Devon Achane. The Dolphins offensive line gets blown up. Loss of 6. Next play. Screen pass. Malik Washington. No game. Then after that, screen pass. Raheem Mostert. Incomplete. So you get after the 4th down conversion to Jalen Waddle, middle of the field. This is what this moron calls end around, loss of 6 yards, screen pass, gets you absolutely fucking nowhere. He stinks. McDaniel stinks. They settle for a field goal. It's 14-3. Green Bay end around with Jade. How ironic. How ironic. The Dolphins do an end around. Offensive line gets blown up. They lose 6 yards. Green Bay does an end around. Everyone's blocking downfield. Everybody's hustling. A gain of 23. They go 3 and out after that, but still, though, that's pretty ironic. The Dolphins, they go 4 plays, and they punt. Tua gets sacked twice on the left side. The guy, Lucas Van Ness, is on Teron Armstead. Tua steps up. Van Ness is off Armstead. He gets a sack. The 3rd down play, Tua gets sacked. This guy just runs around Teron Armstead, and it's like Teron Armstead was moving at a slow motion. Like, I don't know what the fuck he was doing. That probably was the worst he's ever looked this season. That was a horrible display by 72. And on the very next drive, the Packers, 6 plays, 62 yards, a touchdown for the Packers. Chris Brooks for an 18-yard run. Jordan Love to Christian Watson for 21 yards. 3rd down, Jordan Love, easy touchdown to Jaden Reed. Packers are up 21-3. At this point, this game is fucking over. Oh, the game was over here. Not that drive. This. The Dolphins go 8 plays, 32 yards. They get the first down on 3rd and 1 to Jonnu Smith. They have the ball at their own 46. Jonnu Smith for 11 yards. 2nd down, Tua to Achane for 5 yards. And it's incomplete on 3rd down to Malik Washington. So now, it's 4th and 5. You're at the Green Bay 38-yard line. And the announcer, Mike Tirico, is talking how Jason Sanders made a field goal in this direction from 58 yards in warm-ups. You need points crucially in a game like this. I would have given Jason Sanders a shot. But instead, you go for it. Tua throws over Devon Achane's head, and it's incomplete. And he had another play on this drive where he had Tyreek wide open in the middle of the field, and he threw it behind him. So, that drive, right before halftime, momentum, not a momentum killer, but that put the nail in the coffin. That drive. Tua, where you gotta clutch up and you gotta get points before halftime, fails. He fails. And of course, Green Bay gets the ball back. There's 25 seconds left before halftime, and they get themselves a field goal. So now, that's a 6-point swing. A 6-point swing right there. Looking to get at least 3 before halftime. You don't convert on 4th down. Green Bay gets 3 points in 25 seconds. That's a 6-point swing. So you went from potentially being down 21-6 to 24-3. That's how you lose games. They come out of the locker room and they go 3 and out. That's the message they sent, that they made no adjustments. None. at halftime. And I guess you could say the defense made adjustments at halftime, but at that point, it was already 24-3. It was too little too late for this Dolphins team to come back. 8 plays, 72 yards in 5 minutes for the Packers. Third down, Jordan Love goes deep to Christian Watson, who's got Storm Duck on him, and he completes it. They were picking on this guy all night. He had a rough night, did Storm Duck. They did not throw at Jalen Ramsey's direction much. They were really targeting Cam Smith and Storm Duck, and it worked out beautifully for them, especially on this play. So they get down to the Miami 28. Love to Jacobs for 15. Love loses 4 on a pass to Chris Brooks on second down. And on 3rd and 12, Love throws it to Jaden Reed, who catches it one-handed for 9 yards. And it is a field goal for the Packers. They go up 27-3. Dolphins go 8 plays, 70 yards in 5 minutes. Jonnu Smith, 13 yards, fumbles the ball out of bounds. 2nd and 9, Tua to Malik Washington for 8 yards. 3rd and 1, they run the ball. Offensive line can't move the defensive line for 1 yard. So Raheem Mostert gets blown up in the backfield. They got to go for it. They got to pass. Luckily, they get it, though. Jonnu Smith for 16 yards. Then Tua to Waddle for 16 yards. And Tua screen pass to Achane for 14 yards and a touchdown. They get the 2-point conversion to Jalen Waddle. The Dolphins are down 27-11. The Packers go 4 plays, 17 yards, and they punt once Josh Jacobs gets blown up in the backfield on 3rd and 1, and we're going into the 4th quarter. The Dolphins take 6 minutes off the clock, 12 plays, 75 yards. This drive. A punch in the gut. A punch in the fucking gut. We start the drive. Tua to Tyreek for 13 yards. 2nd and 2. Tua to Achane for 3. First down. Tua goes deep finally to Tyreek Hill for 24 yards, and they get it. 3rd and 6. Tua goes to OBJ for 9, and Tua gets absolutely blasted from behind. The defender stepped on his helmet. He stepped on his helmet, and the ref picked up the flag and didn't call roughing the passer. Fucking bullshit call right there by the referee. Bullshit. Tua to Waddle for 12 yards. Achane gets an 8-yard run from the 9 to the 1. And here we go. 2nd and goal. We have 1 yard to pick up. 2nd and goal. Nothing. Offensive line not able to move the defensive line an inch. Achane gets blown up at the line of scrimmage. Then we got to throw because we can't trust this offensive line. Tua goes to Jonnu, incomplete. Very next play, he's sacked. Again, an absolute gut punch. That drive was. If you really want to call that game, I guess you can. I thought the game was over when it was 21-3 and they were not able to score points before halftime. The Packers go down 9 plays, 78 yards. They get a field goal. McManus from 33 yards. The Dolphins go down 7 plays, 67 yards. 3rd and 9, Tua to Tyreek for 30. They get a touchdown. It was tipped by Jonnu Smith. and Tyreek Hill gets a 12-yard touchdown. They can't pick up the 2-point conversion. That's game. That is game right there. The Dolphins lose to the Packers 30-17 on Thanksgiving night. So now, you look at the state of the Dolphins. They're 5-7, and their schedule is not as hard as it looked to be in the beginning of the season. Their toughest game is probably at Houston in 2 weeks, but it's not mathematically over. But this team does not have a shot in the playoffs. Let's call a spade. This team does not have a realistic shot in the playoffs. By the way, teams like the Broncos or the Chargers are playing right now, one of those teams would really have to fall apart at the end of the season. And you look at the Colts. The Colts' final 3 games is an absolute joke. They play the Titans, the Giants, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's basically a 3-team race between the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Colts for 2 spots in the AFC playoffs. It's not mathematically over, but I think the Dolphins are out of the playoffs. I think it's over. And it sucks because I know they're probably going to win a couple more games. They're not going to make the playoffs. And they're going to have a middle-of-the-road draft pick. They're going to be picking like 14th, 15th, 16th. And that's just the same garbage we've gotten almost every year, besides the last 2 years with making the playoffs. So, it sucks, man. This was, honestly, one of the more depressing Dolphin games I've ever watched. Based off that first half performance, I mean, they just looked like they didn't want to be there. And you have expectations, and they're not met. And shit like this absolutely sucks. It sucks right now. But there's 5 games to go. I literally don't care what happens anymore. I kind of just want the season to be over. So, we'll see, man. But I'll never stop cheering for this team. Always support the aqua and orange. And it sucks right now, man. It stinks. Fuck. Happy Thanksgiving.